came down, we had these cups in your pants. You ate out of them, you drank out of them, yeah. And we would always, when we got back in, we're waiting for the trucks to come and pick us up and take us back to base. They took the students who were all officers. That's when we started clanging. Exactly. And the sergeant would have said, "Hey, militia guys, cut that out." I had to come back here at 1:30. Maybe. I hate it when they're smiling when they sit down. That means they got a big agenda.
Good morning. Welcome to PPACG. We've come out of executive session. We received legal advice. No decisions were made. So we'll come on in, call to order, establish a quorum. I think we have that. Introductions. Andy Pico from Colorado Springs.
Mark Waller, El Paso County Commissioner.
Peggy Littleton, El Paso County Commissioner.
Neil Levy, Mayor, Woodland Park.
Rocky Scott, Transportation Committee.
Mike Shirley, United States Air Force Academy.
Robin Slade, Schriever Air Force Base.
Eric Dormany, Peterson Air Force Base.
Rod Chisholm, Deputy Garrison Commander, Fort Carson.
Jeff Kaiser, Mayor, Town of Monument.
Commissioner Mark Wallaby, Park County, in charge of Hoosier Pass.
In charge of Hoosier Pass.
And law public transportation representative.
Nicole Nicoletta, Mayor, Manitou Springs.
Bill Murray, City Council.
Stan Vanderwerf, El Paso County Commissioner.
Tyler Stevens, Trustee, Green Mountain Falls.
Norm Steen, Keller County Commissioner.
Thank you. First item is approval of the agenda.
Move to approve.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Public comments for comments not on the current agenda. And first, I'd like to go to Councilwoman Sharon Thompson.
Thank you. I'm going to come up here for just a minute. April is National Volunteer Recognition Month. PPACG would not be what it is without the volunteers that we have inside and outside of this building daily. And so I just wanted to take a minute and recognize all the volunteers that are in our room today and the volunteers that are on our different commissions and boards and say thank you. We appreciate you and we respect the time that you give to us, and we'd like to recognize you. So if you're in the room today and you're a volunteer on one of our boards or commissions or for countywide, citywide, or anything, would you please stand? Nobody. All right. One. Thank you very much. And I'm sure you all join me in saying thank you to the volunteers that make our communities really work. So thank you.
Thanks, Sharon. I think it goes without saying that, but I'll say it anyway. The cities and the counties, none of us would function without the volunteers that make this work. So anyone else would like to? Yes, come on up. You gave us quite a package here. I'd ask you, because of the time constraints, to
yes.
Quick.
That's why I gave you the package so you can read it. I will give you a brief overview. With all the concerns about the PFOAs in the water and the fact that I've expressed my concerns that the fracking's contribution in millions of gallons of PFOAs to our wastewater and our water systems have not been addressed yet, and that my concerns that Peterson Air Force Base firefighting foam has been used as a smokescreen for that makes me extremely sad and very concerned. Now, at the county meeting a few weeks ago, there was a water sufficiency report that came out. El Paso County?
There's 3 counties here. So.
Oh, sorry. Well, it actually concerns everybody. Sorry. But I appreciate that. El Paso County. So El Paso County has my concern, and so does Fountain, because both entities have just approved in the last couple of months water sufficiency for 240 more homes plus in each area. And Whitefield's water sufficiency report for the one that was approved by El Paso County Commissioners just a couple weeks ago says that the PFOAs, the PFCs, which is the group that includes the PFOAs, are unregulated and unenforceable. And so therefore, they have all the water they need for 240 plus more homes. That attitude greatly concerns me. No, oh, we've got it all mitigated, which it's not, because the charcoal, activated charcoal will only take out up to 10% at best, according to the EPA reports. We need to address the sources of these PFOAs before we can say, okay, we're safe to drink this water again. That is a great deal of people who are still concerned, and this water sufficiency report that was approved by the state as well as the county of El Paso County really concerns me. And the fact that the silt that's in the Big Johnson Reservoir, where a great deal of that water was, has not been addressed as well. That silt is still out there just wherever they're going to put it, and nobody's addressing the fact that it's just as contaminated as the water that was in it. That was my concern. That's what's in this handout I gave you. This is what everybody needs to be concerned, because that attitude about the PFOAs is unacceptable for the health and welfare of any county in any state. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay. Okay, next item up is the consent items. All these, you have it in your package. Any questions, comments on any item on the consent? Accept the motion that this.
Move approval. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, action items, 5A, the 2017-2022 TIP Amendment Number 8.
Good morning, everyone. Kevin Reyes, Transportation Planner here with PPACG. Today I'm going to be going over Amendment Number 8 for the 2017-2022 Transportation Improvement Program. Amendment Number 8 this month is quite large. It comes in 4 different parts, so I will briefly run through each part and answer any questions you guys might have at the end. And we also have the Copper Ridge Metropolitan District here as well for their project, and they will be speaking more specifically on that project. So the first part of Amendment Number 8 comes from the Copper Ridge Metropolitan District. They plan to add $36,617,000 of its own funds into the TIP for the design and construction of the Phase 1 of the North Powers Boulevard interchange. Part 2 comes from El Paso County. They plan to add $270,000 of Federal Highway Safety Improvement Program funds with a $30,000 local match to conduct a road safety audit on local roads and roads in the unincorporated El Paso County area. And they are going to prioritize safety concerns and develop a plan of action. Part 3 comes from Mountain Metro Transit. They are planning to add its 2015 apportionment of Federal Transit Administration funds for the 5310 program. They have not identified specific projects, but these funds will be going for various projects that will improve mobility for seniors and individuals with disabilities. Mountain Metro Transit was also awarded 2 faster projects, and they plan to purchase new vehicles with those funds as well. The last part of Amendment Number 8 comes from the Colorado Department of Transportation. They are planning to add 6 new projects into the TIP, 4 of which are safety projects. They're all receiving funds from the Highway Safety Improvement Program. And 3 of those projects are safety projects at intersections, and 1 of those projects is installing a cable barrier along I-25. And then the last 2 projects that CDOT plans to add is coming from the CDOT Contingency Fund. The first of which is for the design of the I-25 widening from Academy to Circle. They plan to widen this section to 6 lanes. And then the last project they're planning to add is for the design of the interchange at State Highway 21 and Research Parkway. This amendment was recommended for approval by both the TAC and the CAC and also PPACG staff. At this time, I would like to invite Copper Ridge Metro District to present more specifically on their project and answer any questions you might have on that. And if you have any additional questions on the other projects, I can address those afterwards. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Tim Mitros. I'm the manager of the Copper Ridge Metro District. I did work for the city for about 25 years, and this project actually started back in 2005. And so I was the development review manager at the time, and so we were working with Gary Erickson to get this into place, and we actually went through the CAC and the TAC back in the day. However, the project wasn't funded. Now the project's funded, and so we're working with CDOT to get this. We want this on the tip, so then the next process is so we can go forward with the 1601 and the interstate access request. So I'm going to be presenting, and so will Alex Brown. He will be talking about how the financing is working for this project. I'm just going to kind of give you an overview. So this is for the North Powers Boulevard, and I'm sorry. Okay. So what we're here for is for the North Powers Boulevard and from I-25 to Voyager Parkway. And Gary Erickson, he's the owner of the whole, of everything, and he's Northgate developer and owner of executive companies. So what we're here today is the Copper Ridge Metro District requests a TIP amendment to the PPACG 2016 through 22 Transportation Improvement Plan for the construction of North Powers Boulevard from I-25 to Voyager Parkway. The district is going to be responsible for the design and the construction of Phase 1A of North Powers Boulevard. The engineering cost is $1.6 million. We have hired FHU to do the design. We've already had the kickoff meeting, so they are proceeding with the design as we speak. The construction estimate is $35 million. We will be able to bond that amount through the URA, and Alex will talk about that more. So this is a vicinity map showing where the project is going to be located, basically up in this area, the extension from 83 over to I-25, and we'll be constructing the section from I-25 to Voyager at this time. And so we're only interested in Phase 1A. Oops. This is kind of the layout of the whole project. We will be constructing all the on and off ramps to I-25. We have the Spectrum Bridge. There's going to be a new road called Spectrum Loop that's going to go into the south part of the parcel. That bridge is out for bid right now. Oops. And so this is a picture of what Spectrum Loop is going to look like, and this is going to be the proposed plan of the new regional shopping center. And now I'm going to turn over to Alex to talk about the financing.
Thank you. My name again is Alex Brown, and I have been a financial consultant to the Copper Ridge District on this project for a number of years. I'm going to go through my slides fairly quickly in the interest of time. So if there are questions as we go through, just please interrupt me and I'll be happy to address them. The history here is, I think people know this, it was an exchange between the City of Colorado Springs and CDOT, Academy and Powers. Powers was originally part of the Strategic Corridors program under Senate Bill 1. That project or that program has kind of come to a close. I think everyone's familiar with the state of transportation financing. So our effort has been to create an alternative source of funding using revenues from the project itself to substitute for what had been expected under Senate Bill 1. And those revenues are coming through a tax increment financing structure where we are collecting 1 cent of the 2-cent city sales tax and property tax revenues for the project, and I'll speak to the growth of that. Some of the history here is that this area was annexed in 1998. The annexation agreement included a requirement to reserve right-of-way for a future Powers Boulevard. That right-of-way was transferred in 2014 at no cost to the city. After 2018, there would have been a requirement to pay, so we were able to move the land, the right-of-way, into public ownership at zero cost. The district was formed in 2008. The role of the Metropolitan District is to take care of all of the local infrastructure. So circulator streets, traffic controls, storm drainage, matters like that are attendant to the development are all handled by the district. The urban renewal plan was approved by unanimous vote of City Council in June of 2010. The plan restricts the use of tax increment funds to Powers Boulevard. That is the only project that can be funded with the tax increment revenues. The cooperation agreement was executed in 2013, and that's what made the city sales tax available. And just as a point of reference, we originally called the project Copper Ridge. The name change to Polaris Point was something initiated by the Air Force Academy, and so that is the official designation today. So far, we've seen about 650,000 square feet of development. We think there are about 1,500 jobs that have been created. Depending upon the activity, the development activity, there can be anywhere from 500 to 1,000 workers on site. The tax base growth has been very strong in two areas. We started with a tax base for property tax revenue of $1.5 million. That is about $16 million today and continuing to grow. The sales tax revenue being created from within the urban renewal area at the time of inception was $30,000 a year. That has now grown to $500,000 a year, and it's continuing to escalate as we open more and more stores. Now, again, that sales tax revenue represents 1% of the city's 2-cent sales tax, so an equivalent amount of money, $500,000, is going to the city's general fund as a result of this project development. The north area along Northgate and over towards Voyager is about 80% developed. We're getting into phase 2. The biggest and most notable recent addition was a 70,000 square foot complex involving a grocer, hardware store, and 25,000 square feet of inline space. And as Tim mentioned, we are extending Spectrum Loop to the south area to facilitate development in that area. So this, again, is a visual of the project area. The upper half above the Powers connection is what we call Phase 1 and Phase 2. Those areas were suitable for development because of easy access off of Northgate, but the center area, as well as the area south of the Powers Boulevard alignment, is in need of access and visibility to support that development. The development that's occurred to date is capable of funding Phase 1. Phase 1 will open the door to developing the south area. Development of the south area will then create additional revenue growth for the completion of the project, if needed, the whole way to State Highway 83. So it's a bit of a stepping stone project. We've developed a certain amount based on the road network in place today, and we need this segment to help continue the development in the south area. This is just a graph of the tax base as it has grown. On the tax increment side, we're getting about $1.2 million in revenue. That should grow to about $1.8 million over the next year or so. Same with sales tax revenue. You can see sales tax somewhat volatile based on seasonality. You can easily tell where the December months are. But again, the trend line has been a steady growth and increase in these revenues, and they are also part of what's going to help. This is a slide I'd like to spend a little bit of time on because it speaks to project management, participation, and things that we still need to do in the future. Our purpose today is to request addition to the TIP so that we can continue processing project matters related to interstate access and CDOT-related approvals. But to date, looking at the center, you can see the cooperation agreement, and that is between and among the district, the Urban Renewal Authority, and the city. And what that does is speak to the tax increment funds that are being available, in particular the sales tax revenue, discusses their use and application, how we manage the funds, pre-construction. So to date, we have been receiving and collecting and putting the money essentially into an escrow account or a bank account. The funds are largely held by the Urban Renewal Authority. We did create a technical advisory committee to help think through various issues and actions, and I've listed some of the many participants. This isn't a hyperactive group. We've met a few times and processed some early action items, so there was some utility work done underneath the right-of-way, for example, that the Utilities Department said was going to be required. They wanted to see it done now, so that kind of work has been funded out of the funds collected to date. There is a design contract that has been awarded, and that work is currently underway, again being funded by the tax increment revenues. The big piece that is in front of us that speaks to project management is in the lower part called the Project IGA. And our plan is to develop an IGA, again, among the district, the city, and CDOT. And this IGA will address development and long-term management of the roadway itself. Our proposal has been that the district could serve as the agent to contract for construction. The district is the party that receives all of the tax increment funds, but everything that gets done will be done in accordance with the IGA yet to be negotiated with the city and CDOT. And that will spell out all of the details. We are required under the cooperation agreement, as well as I believe the motion passed by City Council when the tax increment district was created, to present a plan of finance to the city for review. And we are in the process of negotiating with two large banks to fund Phase 1. They were selected on a competitive bid basis based on their view and assessment of what we'd be able to fund, and their view is in line with the project needs and requirements. So we are already required, and when we get that more completely put together, it will be presented to the city for their review consistent with existing agreements and requirements. At such time as the parties feel we're now ready to draw up the IGA, I think it's something that people feel it's a little premature right now, so dedicating the staff time and effort to it might be getting us a little bit ahead of schedule, but everything that is of interest to the city and CDOT with regard to the development of this roadway as well as the long-term management will be included in that IGA. And we will participate, and I say we, I mean the district, primarily for the funding and construction elements, but everything else it will be done in accordance with what the city and CDOT feel is appropriate and necessary for this project. So I just wanted to take a little bit of time to speak to that because it is a somewhat complex undertaking. There are a lot of pieces that are in place today and have been for a few years, but there's still some work going forward. And again, the action request today isn't to approve the project in any final sense. We simply need to be on the tip in order to take care of other process requirements, 1601, et cetera, that are necessary to going forward with the project. So with that, I'll conclude my remarks, and I think Tim and I will see if we have any questions.
Yeah, one quick question. In general terms, I understand a lot to be done before you're ready to break ground, but when do you anticipate round numbers when construction would start on it?
So do you know the design?
We have the consultant on board now. They're going to be finished with design this fall, so we're planning to go to construction this winter.
Really? Okay. Winter construction. Yeah.
Completion will probably be about a year out, year to 18 months, because there are a number of bridges that have to be constructed. But it's relatively a clean site, so we do feel like probably about a year time frame.
Okay. Good question. Congratulations. Now, this is a great step. It's always great to see private development stepping into developing our region. The concern I have is in the process of negotiating that IGA, in the event that something comes up that is additional cost. This is obviously an extension of Colorado 21, a state highway. You're connecting with a federal highway. In the event that some step isn't fully perceived or in negotiation with the IGA, some additional cost come in. What's the process to either redefine scope or redefine financing to cover those additional costs? Because we've heard that, at least from CDOT staff, the total cost might be larger than the $36 million you've proposed.
Well, we have spoken to builders directly. Executive Consulting has an engineer on staff who has spent quite a bit of time working on the cost estimate. We understand there is that different point of view. We are still comfortable that our cost estimate is very close to what we feel will be the result of the bids that come in, and this project will go out to bid. When it comes to additional sources of funding for the kind of items, I'd like to point at everybody else, but I think in the end it's going to point back at us. And so we will have to rely upon the resources of the tax increment and potentially the district. Now, the district we have identified as funding local infrastructure. It is not inconceivable that the district would sort of step in and help out financially as well. So we haven't pulled on that resource yet, but that's my next pocketbook to go to.
Okay. Any other comments, questions? Okay, this is
Thank you.
Thank you. You have any wrap up?
If there's any other questions on any other projects, we can address those at this time.
Any other comments, questions? This is an approval item. Open to a motion for approve.
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. State legislation update.
Good morning, board members. Pull up all my recent things. Okay, so as you all know, I'm Jessica McMullen, your Policy and Communications Manager. It's nice to see you all here today. You all received from me every Friday the most recent updated legislative tracker. There's one update that came about late last night, yesterday, and that is the Chamber of Commerce and EDC here in the Pikes Peak area has decided to oppose House Bill 1242. And they did take that position based on amendments that were coming out. They did not specify what amendments those were, and I have not yet seen them published on the website.
I was there, and we'll talk afterwards.
Okay.
Okay.
So today's request for you from me is that we are requesting that you ratify the following positions proposed by the Legislative Subcommittee. Senate Bill 17267, Sustainability of Rural Colorado, Monitor. House Bill 1264, the PACE Ombudsman Program, Add Local Ombudsman, Monitor. House Bill 17-1242, the Infrastructure, Monitor. House Bill 17-213, Automated Driving Motor Vehicles, move to support as the concerns with it were addressed. House Bill 17-1253, Protect Seniors from Financial Abuse, Monitor. And House Bill 17-1222, Caregiver Family Caregiver Support Fund Tax Checkoff, support. Does anyone have any questions about what's going on?
Mayor?
Just the reasoning behind monitoring 17-1264, the PACE Ombudsman, versus supporting it?
Commissioner Waller, would you like to address that, or Sharon?
The amount of the bill is $500,000, and we were going to get one part-time employee out of it. So we weren't really sure if what we were going to get, the services we were going to get out of it, were necessarily worth the equivalent cost for the bill.
No, that's right. But I did want to go back to 1242 for a second and talk about that, the transportation tax increase bill that's coming up. We as El Paso County had been monitoring that bill, but have recently decided that we are actually going to be opposing that piece of legislation as well. So there's going to be a resolution from El Paso County declaring our opposition to House Bill 1242, and that's after consulting with, certainly the Chamber of Commerce here in Colorado Springs in our region, and after reading the comments of the Colorado Springs Mayor John Suthers in the Gazette and expressing his opposition to House Bill 1242 as well. So no, that's going to be coming from El Paso County. We're going to be opposing House Bill 1242.
Any other comments, questions?
Norm Steen, Teller County. I was there at the Senate hearing yesterday, the Senate Transportation and Energy Committee. Senator Grantham, the Senate President, is the sponsor of the bill, as well as Senator Randy Baumgartner, the chairman of that subcommittee, of that committee rather. I did talk with Rachel Beck prior to her testimony and prior to my testimony. I spoke not on behalf of PPCG, but on behalf of Colorado counties. I'm the vice chair of the representing 61 counties statewide, and CCI has taken a support position. I know that El Paso has taken a opposed position. I talked with Commissioner Waller in Denver a few weeks ago. So a little awkward that I'm on two boards, this one, which has taken a monitor position, and now my fellow commissioners are on the table, and even City Council and Mayor Southers has also taken a opposed position. But I just want to be clear that I was not speaking for PPACG yesterday, but on behalf of 61 counties, primarily rural. The 61 counties in CCI are all 64 counties in the state minus Denver, Boulder, and I think San Juan, a very small county in southwest Colorado. But their concern was that if no bill is passed, if 1242 is not advanced, 1171, President Harvard's bill is already dead. There is no solution for long-term funding statewide. Absent 1242, there will be no state funding statewide. Colorado counties has taken a position that something needs to advance, and we've taken a position, we, CCI, for which I spoke for yesterday, that the rest of the state does not have an RTA solution, as the Pikes Beach region does, and it puts rural funding for Colorado counties, not the organization, but actual counties, in jeopardy. So very, very contentious. The next steps for this bill is it now still has to go to Senate Finance, has to go to Senate Appropriations, because one of the major changes is dropping from 0.62 statewide sales tax to a 0.50, but also pulls $100 million from general fund money, undetermined where this is going to come from. This is where it's going to get snagged up in Finance and Approps to actually get this thing passed. But the overwhelming consensus in the room from all parties, both sides, is that we need a solution. Something needs to be done. And absent 1242, there isn't anything. So, go ahead.
Commissioner Waller?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And to be clear, I just want to make sure everybody understands what 1242 does. 1242 does not provide transportation funding. It doesn't create some sort of transportation funding. All it does is says we're going to have a legislatively driven initiative that's going to go to the ballot and then ask the citizens whether or not they want to support the nuts and bolts of what 1242 does. So it's effectively a legislatively driven initiative to raise the sales tax to create funding for transportation spending both at the state level, local level, and also some multimodal transportation spending as well. But it's going to ultimately be up to the voters to decide.
Commissioner?
Commissioner Mark Wallaby, Park County. What are we going to do in the rural counties? I mean, you've got your RTA, and that's all fine and good, and you can be a partner. You have your little developments of sales tax, and you can pay your way. We've got 17,000 people up in Park County that have to travel, and then the tourists all come in the summertime. And a lot of the tourists that come to Colorado Springs and buy stuff at your nice little place you're building there then head up to the mountains, and that's why they come here. And once they get there, they're going to fall into a pothole or fall off Hoosier Pass. And if you don't give Rocky some money to fix these roads, to spend, we're screwed. That's a good quote for the Gazette.
That was a capital S.
Yeah, and I want to take it a little farther. Everybody, we get a call every year in Alma from some newspaper in Colorado Springs accusing us of running a speed trap up there, and I'd like to make the point that you also shoot radar in Colorado Springs. That people speeding through your town is not a good thing, and so we try to slow them down a little bit. And it costs us money, by the way, to have a police department. It doesn't pay for itself, and we need repairs on our roads. They're falling apart. It costs 10% to seal the road up and save it of what it's going to cost to rebuild it. If we stop investing in transportation in this state, it's going to cost 10 times more to rebuild all those roads, and nobody will come to Colorado Springs because they won't want to travel all over the state, and there won't be any place to go because they'll ruin their cars. And that's another huge cost to our that I've read about recently, is costs like $1,000 a year to ride on bad roads in your car. So you'd be better off spending $100 to put it towards a gas tax than you would be to rebuilding all the roads in Colorado, which is what's going to happen. And this is a bad move. I don't know how long you've been involved in transportation, but I've been going to those meetings for a lot of years, and they need money.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you, and thanks, Commissioner. I appreciate your concerns and the need expressing your desire and need to spend money on transportation in the state of Colorado, and I couldn't agree with you more that as a state we need to prioritize. I'll wait till you're done. I'll tell you, I think as a former state legislator, current county commissioner, I agree with you. We need to prioritize transportation spending in the state of Colorado. Here's the problem. Revenues are up from last year to this year, almost $1 billion in the state, yet we refuse to spend any of that money, any of those new revenues on transportation in the state. We've prioritized other things over transportation. In fact, about 83% of our budget goes to K through 12 spending and Medicaid, and then 17% left for everything else. And we've refused as a state, from a policy perspective, to prioritize transportation spending. It's been a massive problem. Now, in our region, our community, El Paso County, of which about 2/3 of our county is made up of Colorado Springs, we already have 8.25% sales tax in our region, our community, in the city of Colorado Springs. We continue to raise that. We become, I believe I read somewhere, the 15th highest sales tax rate in the nation. Now, we think that's a bad policy decision in our community to have the 15th highest sales tax rate. We think then those tourists aren't going to come and spend their dollars in our community when they're paying close to 9% sales tax rate. And so it's going to have a negative impact on our region to have the 15th highest sales tax rate in the nation. It's our concern that people are going to stop buying goods in our stores and, go off and buy them on Amazon because consumers will be able to save 9% in the process of doing that. And so, nobody disputes that we have not prioritized transportation spending in the state of Colorado. We completely agree with that. The disagreement becomes, how do we reinvigorate transportation spending? I can tell you, former state legislator who voted on state budgets for numerous years in the state of Colorado, I would like us to prioritize transportation. But I'd like us to prioritize a little bit more out of the general fund and not go back and ask continually to raise the sales tax rate in the state of Colorado to make it happen, because it's just not tenable.
If something doesn't happen soon, there won't be anything left to save.
Completely agree with you. That's why you need to be calling your state legislator and telling them to prioritize spending through the general fund. Put more general fund into this, and then we'll start looking at some sort of other revenue generation.
Councilman Murray?
For whatever reason, the budget has been balanced on transportation, and it keeps being balanced on transportation. Everything else goes through, and then here's our huge expense that has to be paid. It's like a bill that has to be paid, and nobody's paying it. And it's $100 a year. I mean, it's not that much compared to all the other taxes you pay.
I completely agree with you, and the same argument was made in 2009 when they passed the faster fee. And I'll tell you what happened with the faster fee. Instead of having those dollars go to roads and bridges, they put that money in the transportation pool and then took it out the other side to put it into capital construction to build new buildings for CDOT. Same argument was made in 2009.
But have you ever been to those old buildings?
Well, absolutely. But what's more important? What's more important? Having adequate roads and bridges for the people of the state of Colorado, or having a new building for CDOT. And by the way, the pitch was not to pass faster to build new buildings. The pitch for faster was to build roads and bridges. Be honest about what the dollars are going to be going for.
Okay.
Well, I could spend 2 hours on why I believe the legislature was the problem, but I won't do that. I'll talk first of all about what goes around comes around. Please, sir, I'm speaking. You had your chance. All right, now let me go back first with the what goes around comes around. Both Norman and Mark have a very succinct point. Okay, and we need to come up with other ideas and better ideas on how to do it. This is not an egregious request to let the citizens make a determination. Okay, what we're doing here is denying them the right to make a determination of what they believe is in the best interest for themselves and their communities. And that's where I find that egregious. Okay, having said that, and looking at the bigger process, we do realize that the city of Colorado Springs and El Paso lives on sales tax. Well, that's because we decided to do it that way. This is our choice of sales tax. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, our sales tax can go to 15 or 20% because we're not willing to readjust the base of our sales tax. I mean, there's a lot of diminishing returns. You mentioned that. We talked about a mall development up here in Powers. Okay, all the stats that have just come in said malls are not the future. That's their problem, not ours. But back to how we look at how we process as a regional organization. We process through how everyone gets along and not specifically ourselves. And I continually will say, if we don't come up with solution sets instead of excuses and reasons and everything else, we're not going to go anywhere. So I suggest we help these folks, put it on the ballot and let the people make the decision instead of making it for them.
Well, okay, I'm going to jump in here. We aren't going to be making the decision for them because, frankly, we're all PPACG is going to do is decide whether to support, oppose, or monitor. And I think the discussion here is kind of shows PPACG is a pretty big regional thing. We've got three counties in there, one's urban, one rural, and one, I'm not sure, will you count yourself urban? Both, right? Yeah. Rural?
Public lands,
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Andy, I think that was part of the reason why the group decided to choose the position of monitor, because we had passionate people for it and we had passionate people against it, and we just didn't feel there was any cohesive consensus of what the group would want. And so they just let each individual entity make their own decision and contact their legislators on their own for their entity.
And I think that that's a very appropriate. We've done that in the past, and I think that's appropriate for PPACG as organization continue, because I know, the city of Colorado Springs is pretty much opposed to it for the most part. Not everybody. There's a difference of opinion there. The county is definitely in an opposed mode, and a lot of our regional organizations within the city organizations related are very much opposed to it as well. So yeah, I think it's appropriate that we continue to monitor. Any other opposition? Yes.
Yeah, just very briefly, thank you. For this group, a monitor position I think is appropriate, but I want to go on record and state that I also oppose 1242. It is a mistake. We have a prioritization and structure problem. We do not have a revenue problem. And if we really want to do the job right, if we really want to fix our roads, we need to address the structure and prioritization problem first, because that will deliver, if not all the dollars needed, certainly a substantial amount of the dollars needed. And that is a priority. We all know it. So we need to set the priority, and the legislature needs to do that, possibly take that to the citizens for a vote, but do it in that way. And after that, if there's not enough money for roads, then we can talk about a sales tax increase. Thank you.
Okay. So we have before us the positions recommended. Do we have any other changes, comments to make? entertain a motion at this time.
Make a motion to approve. Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay,
Aye.
thank you. That was fun.
That was interesting. That was good. Yeah.
I'm going to add something real quick. So everybody knows, if your cell phones are next to the microphone, even if the microphones are off, you cause that feedback. So if you can put them in your pockets, it's the only way you can prevent them from doing that.
The chair complies. Okay, next item up is the executive director search. The short answer, you have a presentation? There you go, Barb.
Barb Watson, PPACG Office Resources Manager. There was a memorandum in your board packet, as well as I sent out a email to board members asking for my proposal today for action to form a subcommittee and appoint several board members. 2 board members has been suggested, with 1 to 2 alternates, 2 community partners, and 3 staff members to be appointed by Rick Sonnenberg.
Okay. I have received a recommended from Mr. Sonnenberg on his appointments, which I think are fine. I think the board chair, myself, will make those appointments, but I'm looking for volunteers. Okay.
Did you read the time commitment?
Jill Gabler also.
Yeah, I've got her.
I think it was also discussed that the 2 volunteers would not come from the same entity. So we wouldn't have 2 Colorado Springs or 2 El Paso County commissioners or 2 Taylor County commissioners, to make it a more rounded commission. Maybe one of them could be an alternate, but not be at, at the meetings at the same time.
Okay. So we got Gabler, Littleton, Mayor Nicoletta, Norm Steen. Did I miss someone?
Jill Gabler?
I got her. So I've got 4.
Did you
And
get-
then, yeah, I've got Mayor
Okay.
Nicoletta. And then for the community partners, Kono has volunteered, as well as, I keep messing up their name, the Chamber. And Jill Gabler recommended that we use one specific person, but I'm not sure if I want to ask the Chamber to do that. So your thoughts on that? I know the Chamber kind of represents Colorado Springs as opposed to the region. That concern has been raised, so open to alternatives. And I know one other group has been asked if they want to participate. So any other comments, additions?
I do.
You live? Yeah. Yes, Mayor.
So after we talked about not, or our concerns with having the chamber as part of the committee, why are we now revisiting the option of having them as part of the committee?
One individual was recommended who I think would be a very good person, but I'm a little bit uncomfortable asking the Chamber for a specific person as opposed to their involvement. But so I want your.
But we would want one person assigned to it, not different people coming to every meeting, correct?
That's absolutely
Right.
the case.
Because I know when I was really specific and talked to Konos, since they had put their name out there, and I said we would want one specific person, they did come back with a person that would be willing to be that key person, Dave Munger. Put his name forward to be that person to represent Konos. So.
And the individual recommended for the Chamber, whether I have to talk to the Chamber, is a former PPACG person. So there's a certain, it was Rachel.
And just very briefly, I had been approached by Kono as well. I believe, notwithstanding you might have just one or maybe 2, I don't know, but I would also recommend Dave Munger. I think he would do a good job.
Okay. So I'll finalize these recommendations.
I would be comfortable with Colorado Springs Chamber with, I'm sorry, I just lost his name.
Rachel?
No, I just lost the name. The Rick runs it. Who? Dirk. Dirk Draper, yes.
You be comfortable with Dirk?
I would, yes.
I'm comfortable with Rachel.
I'm comfortable with Rachel also. Rachel Beck, yes.
We can ask them to.
Well, I mean, my normal approach would be Dirk, who do you want to put on here? But I can discuss that with her. I will. Okay, I will finalize those. And I think of the four volunteers from the board here, you can consider yourselves appointed, but we have two, a limitation of 2 at a time, so I'll leave it in your hands to coordinate that. I don't think we want to post the meetings. Well, we'll talk about that. Yeah, we can review that. Okay.
Thank you.
I don't think I need a motion to approve.
It's listed as an action item.
It's listed as action item, yeah. I think the action item is I will approve the people that we just discussed. I'll entertain that motion.
I so move. You might as well go through it.
Might as well go through it. Request a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Okay, next are the reports, military installation reports.
Again, Rod Chisholm from Fort Carson. Nothing really new from the last time I briefed you over the last 2 months as far as mission change. We have not had any change in mission with all the stuff that's going on with world events. We are going to have Major General Gonzalez, who's a commander of Fort Carson, the 4th Infantry Division, will be rotating out sometime between the August to October timeframe, and Major General Randy George, who has served at least his last 2 opportunities to serve at Fort Carson was as a brigade commander and as one of the deputy commanding generals, will be returning. So more to follow on the exact time. That's all I have this morning.
Okay. Thank you.
Good morning, Eric Dormany again from Peterson Air Force Base. I promised this forum that I'd keep everyone updated on the PFOS, PFOA progress. We are still waiting for the report that is due out sometime mid-summer. That will guide us on our way ahead. In the meantime, we're not sitting around waiting for that. We are engaged fully with security, Widefield, and Fountain water districts on mitigation, longer-term, more sustainable mitigation efforts. Those efforts continue, and I don't see any hiccups, although the timelines continue to change on us as work continues. It's been several weeks of extremes for 21st Space Wing and Peterson. I'm sure many of you have seen in the paper the Omaha Trophy was awarded to 21st Space Wing. That is for the best global operations within STRATCOM. So last week we were able to enjoy the presentation of that from General Hyten came back into town and presented that to us along with some civic leaders from Omaha. So a great time there. On the flip side of that, you also may have read in the paper that we lost an airman downrange. So a staff sergeant assigned to 21st Space Wing here local in the community was lost in the Mideast. It was not due to any hostile action. It was natural causes as best as we can determine, although we're waiting on the final report to make that determination. We continue to grieve with and support his family. His widow lives here in Colorado Springs, and his parents back in Oregon. So certainly a blow to the 21st Space Wing in that regard. We certainly appreciate the support of the community, El Paso County Sheriff, as well as the Freedom Riders and others provided escort as we did a dignified transfer on Friday of his remains back to his home. So we welcomed him back, and he had a memorial service on Saturday at Peterson, and then downtown Colorado Springs, a funeral service on Sunday. So again, appreciate the continued support there. As we look to our way ahead, we are celebrating multiple anniversaries this year. 75 years of Peterson Air Force Base, as well as 25 years of 21st Space Wing. So in May, ironically the 25th of May, we will be having that celebration on Peterson.
There'll be a morning event, probably 11 o'clock-ish, as we continue to our planning. Will be a ceremony commemorating that, and then a dinner that evening. General Raymond, a former 21st Space Wing commander, and now Air Force Base Command commander, will be our speaker. Invites will be coming out shortly, but I did want to put that on everyone's radar. Additionally, we are expecting a leadership change this summer. Colonel Chess is coming to the end of his tenure as 21st Space Wing commander. We have no idea where he's headed yet. And by virtue of that, we have no idea when our change of command is. So the Air Force is continuing to work those moves. It's good to be in play, and he certainly is. But it is a long waiting game to figure out what his next assignment will be. We will keep you posted on that change of command date. So, pending any questions from the board, that's all I have. Yes, ma'am.
Not really a question, just I've had several citizens contacting me in the last week or two about the PFOA issue, because we did have on our agenda just last night an agenda item to pass a preliminary and final design and bidding services for pressure filter facility and PFC removal for $586,000. So obviously our citizens are expressing a little frustration and concern with having to lay out the money up front for getting the issue taken care of, and so any type of updates and things you can keep coming more frequent would be extremely helpful, as we have to answer those citizens' concerns. And you're voting on water rates, and you're voting on and increasing your water rates, and there's definitely concerns within the community.
Absolutely, and we're sensitive to that, and I'm aware of the Air Force pay up front to get the filtration system in place, or is it reimbursement and working through that?
Yeah, I understand all that, but I'm just expressing that we have had a lot of, with the water rates being, forefront, saying we're putting off projects to work on this, that we're just having a lot of citizens express their concerns.
And what I'll do is I'll bring a more detailed update with that specifically to you next time.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Good morning from Schriever Air Force Base. We are hosting the Pikes Peak Leadership Military Day on the 20th of April, so we'll have folks out at the base that day. And then Colonel Burt has planned her last Capitol Hill visit for 1 through 3 May, and her change of command has been set. We don't know where she's going yet either, but the change of command will be the 30th of June, and we will welcome Colonel Jennifer Grant as our new wing commander out there. And then I'll just mention, April is also the month of the military child. So our kids on the base yesterday did a Kids Against Hunger event, and then coming up at the end of the month, the kids who are at the Child Development Center on base will have a parade just to observe that, but that's April in the Department of Defense.
Good morning again. I'm Mike Shirley from the United States Air Force Academy. A couple of big things we have coming in the future is always about this time of year we start spending up for graduation. It's a big event. I know it impacts the community quite a bit, and we try to lessen that as much as we possibly can. This year it's going to be a week earlier. Normally it happens in the end of May. It's going to be the 24th of May this year. That's a Wednesday. You'll see the practicing and the parade and stuff the day before on the 23rd. The Thunderbirds will hit the ground on the 22nd, and we'll press from there. Second thing we have that you're going to show in the community, you'll see a little bit of a difference. You might see at the Air Force Academy if you come that way, is we're doing a gate project on each of the gates. The north and the south gate will be putting overhangs on both of those facilities to protect, just so happens, my guys that actually do the security out there, the law enforcement officers down there at the academy. So we're looking really forward to that and to getting that front kind of built back up and covered up so they can protect the installation along with protecting them at the same time. So that could cause a little bit of backup. We're going to try to minimize that as much as we can. We're going to do a lot of building at nighttime, on the weekends, not during football games. So we'll try to minimize that impact on the community. Any questions, that's all I have for you.
Quick question?
Yes, sir.
Who will be the speaker this time at the graduation?
That's a great question.
It's the chairman.
It's the chairman's going to be. Normally that would be the Secretary of Defense. It's his rotation. Those are the four we have rotating. We couldn't make it this year, so tentatively we have the chairman, General Dunford. he has confirmed, but, there's always some changes to happen. But when in doubt, Secretary of the Air Force.
He's hoping for a different name, but it's okay.
Oh, yeah. That was last year. I was not hoping for a different name. As the security guy. Security guys.
Most down to say, no kidding. Okay. Thank you. Executive Director's report.
Good morning, Rick Sonnenberg, Acting Executive Director for PPACG. In the interest of time, I will not discuss my Executive Director's report that's in the packet that you have. I'll just bring up two items that are not in the packet. First is I want to give you a more detailed explanation of where we are with the revisions to the personnel handbook. Barb Watson and I have at least 10 hours into it so far with teleconferences with the Mountain States Employers Council consultant that's helping us with this. Barb and my 10 hours includes two 2-hour sessions with our 8-member managers group. We're about 2/3 through the handbook. We hope to finish it up next week with 1 or 2 additional 2-hour sessions with the managers group. All of our staff comments are highlighted and will be highlighted in the version that goes to first to the subcommittee through Board Director Thompson. So the staff comments are not buried in or incorporated into the Mountain States version. They will be highlighted for you to see. Any questions on that process? So we hope to get it to Councilmember Thompson towards the end of next week.
Okay, good.
I appreciate that, and if that's not going to be coming next week, you'll be giving me a call and
Certainly.
Okay.
So then you can determine if it's ripe and ready for the board in May or June, but as you see fit.
Okay. I'd also like to distribute to Turner Smith. He's been interested in this, and now also Commissioner. Thank you.
Or Commissioner Stan.
Commissioner Stan, there we go. Commissioner Stan has expressed an interest, so if the three of us could get that at the end of next week so we can begin reviewing it.
Very good.
Thank you.
My second item is we received an email that the Douglas County Commissioners are hosting their launch of a new I-25 GAP coalition with their first meeting being a week from today, next Wednesday the 19th, at the Douglas County Philip S. Miller Building in Castle Rock. And I have volunteered to attend on behalf of PPACG. It's at 1:30 with a press conference. The coalition meeting will be held from approximately 2:15 to 3:30 there in Castle Rock. So I will then have a report back to the board after I attend their launch, their first meeting. It's Wednesday the 19th. 1:30 for a press conference, 2:15 for the meeting to start, and it's the Douglas County Philip S. Miller Building, 103rd Street, Castle Rock. And those are my two miscellaneous items, so I'll just let the report that's in the packet be there for your review and questions if you have any.
Interesting.
Rick, I just want to pass on my personal thanks to you, and I'm sure the rest around the table. We recognize you're doing 2 full-time jobs.
Thank you.
As the executive director of both the RTA and PPACG, 2 full-time staffs, 2 large budgets, and thank you so much for continuing to work very hard.
Thank you for your words.
At the meeting we had on Friday, preparing for this meeting, we mentioned that I-25 gap is really not completely appropriate because the people up north to Fort Collins have a gap as well. And they ought to look at their name to differentiate, to show it's south of Denver, not south and north. So when you go to the meeting, you might bring that up.
We have north and way north.
Way north, right.
the South Gap there.
Okay. Thank you. Any other comments, questions? Next up, Mobility Coordinating Committee. Hi, Gail.
Good morning. Gail Nels, representing the Mobility Coordinating Committee. Once again, our minutes are very well organized and clear, but not to add too much more contention to the meeting today. The CASTA, the Coordinating Council for Transit Agency, is monitoring and supporting 1242 at this time as it stands. And there are, as you know, many statewide agencies that participate in that membership organization for specialized transit and transit. And we appreciate the concerns of El Paso County. We've been talking about that. But we've also been hearing from people from Gunnison and Crested Butte that they even have a higher sales tax, and they are right now neutral on this position. Not quite sure where everyone's going to land. Outside of that, we're just moving along, trying to understand what our needs are and what we can do under the budgetary constraints with faster funds, state transit funds. Any questions or priorities for us? Yes, sir?
Has there been discussion about the reallocation of 5311 money? This is the movement from a grant system to a formula allocation system. And how's that gone?
Right. So I just participated in a town hall meeting from the CDOT DTR Division of Transit and Rail last week. They were very transparent and forthcoming with and deliberate about revising this process to be more, well, I guess maybe more equitable towards the more rural counties of Colorado. Personally, I was impressed with their transparency in their process. I'm sure when you're talking about money, it's always going to be contentious, but I thought it was well thought out, and they are listening. And I think some of that is due to efforts around this table and other people that are politically involved. So they are listening is what my takeaway.
Are you comfortable with what outcome may come from the process?
I am personally. I know that Durango will be seeing some significant impact diminishment of their funds, whereas there would be more funds at some of the more rural counties. And that's to address, I guess, the commissioner over here, from Park County, the 12-4 is outside of, I think, a regular and legislative
It's
place.
internal rule setting, moving it from a grant-based application process to very formulaic, based on ridership, based on a whole number of factors that would be automatically determine a dollar amount based on some given data. So moves it out of the realm of decision-making into a more formula. So.
Right. It looked a little bit more, trying to make a little more quantitative as opposed to, thoughts and feelings about agencies and what we all thought we understood about, some location here in the state.
Some consideration to get newcomers to the system now engaged that weren't allowed because they didn't have a history of use, and to try to make it more equitable. But again, it injects, a more objective rather than subjective distribution of funds.
Well, the grant application process can be onerous for counties
right.
that don't have reasonably sized staffs.
And exactly one of the points. Exactly. Yeah.
Right. They were scoring, applications based on, what percentage of the budget that this grant would mean to that community, and they were getting higher points for a larger percentage of the budget. If you were a small community, because you need that money more, and there's fewer opportunities for you to access other funds. So, as I said, I was impressed with their transparency and their thoughtfulness. It's been over a year that they've been discussing this. Just take away. Anything else? Thank you.
Thanks, Ken. Next up, Transportation Advisory Committee.
CDOT. Yeah.
Morning. Brian Vituli. I'm the planning supervisor with the City of Colorado Springs Mountain Metropolitan Transit and the chair of the Transportation Advisory Committee. I'll just touch on the highlights of the report that's in your packet. The TAC recommended approval of TIP Amendment 8, which you already approved. We're continuing to look at redevelopment of a priority project list. So we'll continue working with CDOT staff, and CDOT staff will be working with the executive committee on that. We've also had our second TIP policy task force. We're recommending that we change the name of this group from the Note Policy Task Force to the TIP Policy Task Force. As we got into it a little bit more, we realized that it goes well beyond re-looking at a note policy. And the note policy stands for not one penny extra. So this was a policy that the board approved back in 2006. And the intent was to keep any member government from underrepresenting the cost of a project, so it would score better, and then coming back later and asking for additional funding for it. So really what we're dealing with now are steep increases in project costs, inflation. When projects are put into the TIP, we're dealing with a 6-year program of projects, and it's very, very hard to predict those costs 6 years out. So we've had some cost overrun issues with some projects, and the group is very well represented. We have some representation from the Community Advisory Committee also. Very good support from PPACG staff, so we're moving forward. We'll have our third meeting next week before our regular TAC meeting, and we're hoping to have something to you all depending on how this next meeting goes, either in May or June. So we're kind of winding down on that. And I just wanted to commend PPACG's transportation program staff on the work they're doing. They've been supporting this TIP policy task force very well. The long-range transportation plan goal development process, which you'll probably see next month as an action item. They've done some great work on that, so just wanted to make sure they were recognized. So, are there any questions?
Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Community Advisory Committee. We have an arm wrestling? It's a race.
Thought I'd been replaced. Jim Moore, Community Advisory Committee Chair. You have our report. The one thing that I would like to spotlight and express appreciation to those board members who were working in the working group on Friday was the opportunity to share in a lot more detail, and I will here, an effort, an initiative that's going on inside the CAC right now to make sure that we are performing the service that you all are expecting from us. We recognize that we are not a technical group, and so we're trying to make sure that we are conforming to your expectations. You all have been very generous in referring to us and the value that our comments have made, but we are now working on trying to take a very vague kind of overview as to what the CAC is all about and turning it into something that we can really be addressing and bringing forward initiatives and possibly some additional commentary that is speaking to what we as citizens bring to the table. So we will be finishing up some of that work. We have a meeting next Tuesday of a subgroup that is going to be looking at some documents that exist but are unofficial documents of the PPACG. And we'll be developing a further discussion at our meeting later this month. You're invited to attend if you'd like. But the idea here is to come back to you with our insight as to what we think we can bring in additional specific value to your deliberations and the areas that you're concerned about, and get you to ratify that so that we can move forward together. Be happy to address any questions that you might have.
Any questions?
Just a comment, Chair.
Yeah.
Jim, thanks for the time you spent with us on Friday. I think every elected official and public servant, I'm going to use that term deliberately, recognize who we work for, and that's the citizens of Colorado, one of our Pikes Peak region. The CAC is the voice of those citizens in the broadest sense. So my personal view is that any way that we can be a better listener, better responder, better attentive with things that concern the citizens of the people we serve, I think we need to fully embrace that. So,
well, that is, Commissioner, that is something that we appreciate hearing as a clarification, okay, because that has not been understood in the committee over the course of the last, well, several months. As I mentioned Friday, this energy has been building to really start to focus on this question. So I appreciate that very much. Nothing further. Thank you.
Thank you. Regional Advisory Council.
Was really eager to get up here. It's Dave Betzler. I'm the chair of the Regional Advisory Council. You have the report before you, and the only other couple notes that I'd like to mention is that there's been talk about money already. So each spring, the Regional Advisory Council has a subcommittee, the Technical Review Subcommittee, and we actually look at the proposals that have come in from the various providers across the three counties. They provide senior services, so the Technical Review Subcommittee has met once, and we have another meeting coming up later on this week. The upshot there is that the subcommittee makes the recommendation, looks at all those dollar requests, looks at the amount of prospective dollars that we expect to have, and then makes a recommendation to the RAC, and ultimately we come back here to the county, or to the PPACG to provide that recommendation. The only other thing I'd mention is that what we're trying to encourage is that for each of the members across the three counties to get out and to actually have face-to-face discussions with the individual providers. I think that it enables the members to become much more well-versed and understand exactly what the realities are of those providers, whether it's at the Aspen Mine Center in Cripple Creek, the Independence Center here, Mountain Community Senior Services in the Tri-Lakes area, whatever it is. The members are representing geographic areas, and it helps if they really understand what those providers, what they are facing. And with that, I just, if there are any questions or comments, I'd be happy to entertain them at this point. Mayor?
So I'm just going to brag for just a second because we're actually on April 25th facilitating a work session in Manitou Springs. It's one of our regular work sessions for council. Yep, and we're going to have all of the providers that service residents of Manitou Springs just at a round table. It's really just an inventory taking because so often what happens in Manitou Springs is, you know, we have transient population comes in throughout the summer, and as we're trying to manage that or take care of the homeless camps up in the woods and stuff, right, sometimes the criticism we get is that we're cleaning it up but we're not offering services. And so we want to make sure that we know exactly what's available, as well as our seniors and all that other kind of stuff. So we are definitely doing that face-to-face on April 25th, and so that'll be really cool.
All right. Thank you very much. That's great. Anything else?
Thank you. CDOT monthly update. I don't believe CDOT. Oh, you did make it.
I snuck in the back.
You snuck in the back.
Dave Watts, CDOT Region 2 resident engineer. I'll be brief, discuss about three areas. One, a brief update on the Cimarron Interchange project. We remain on budget and on schedule for December completion of the improvements. We've reached a few milestones that were reported yesterday with a little bit of a media event. We've put the last of the bridge girders up. There were 84 bridge girders. We put those up last week. They finished. That will allow us to finish the northbound I-25 bridge overpass over US 24 in Fountain Creek. That's going to set the stage for July. Things are going to start coming together, and sometime in the month of July, we anticipate splitting traffic off from where we have now all travel is on the southbound side of I-25. We'll keep the southbound direction on the west side of the interstate and move the northbound direction onto I-25 northbound. We will have travel pushed out to the outsides, allowing median construction to continue after July. We'll be starting landscaping up here as the months warm up, and we'll be completing the single-point urban interchange traffic light system. So around the July time frame, it will start operating much like a single-point urban interchange, which is the ultimate intent. So there's still work to do post-July, but you're going to start seeing some improvements. One thing we're excited about that we haven't talked about is some added value to the I-25 Cimarron interchange project that the Kramer TSH team provided. We've had some discussions here about the quadrant intersection. That will start next month, and that's going to be in the southeast corner of US 24 and 8th Street to help alleviate some of that congestion at 8th and 24. Recall that was not what we were anticipating that we were going to be able to afford to do, so we're going to get some relief at that 24 and 8th Street intersection here, and you'll start seeing some of the actual groundwork, if you will, here in the month of May, and we hope to complete that late June and July. We'll start seeing the trail systems also come together with some of the pedestrian bridges completed in the June-July time frame with the late August opening of the trail system. So I'm happy to report things are progressing well. And I don't have the monthly newsletter, but if help I can get to Rick, I can get you the fact sheet that we provide to the media outlets yesterday. That might be something if the board's interested we could get in your hands, and perhaps I could impose that your staff could distribute that to the board. But if that's of interest with that, I would ask if there's any questions on the I-25 Cimarron project. Yes, sir.
Have you had to dip into contingency funds yet for the project?
We have spent some of the change management budget for some of the hazardous materials removals, some of the utility expenses went a little bit higher than anticipated, so we have spent into some of the change management budget.
Change management, okay. Yes. Proper term, all right.
Contingency works too.
Contingency.
We knew we were going to run into some surprises, and particularly, like I mentioned, with the hazardous materials. Recall about a year ago we had a bunch of blue tanks out there. Those were frac tanks that were filtering out some of the contaminated groundwater as we dug for utility relocations and drainage work. We were anticipating that, but we also ran into some contaminated materials along Fountain Creek. But yes, we're comfortable with our change management budget. That's why I say we're on budget.
Okay, so I know you don't know what you don't know, but you expect at some point to know if there will be any funds left over from that change management budget for reimbursement to the region or to the state?
We're beginning to have some discussions about that and plan for that if we have those funds available, and trying to target projects yet within the region, within the PPACG area, that if there are savings that we can move those towards.
There you go. Thank you.
And we'd be coming back to this group to talk about where those funds might move to.
Perfect. Thank you.
Just contact me. I've got several very precise questions. Thank you.
Yes, Ms. Murray. I want to briefly mention we've got 2 recent project awards, a couple of large resurfacing projects. One, US 50 and State Highway 9. This would be the work to the west of the Royal Gorge entrance. It's in the Central Front Range Plain area. But that's a several mile, in fact about 30 miles worth of resurfacing that we'll be doing this summer. And also that we are in the process of awarding the State Highway 67 resurfacing project. That's the segment between Cripple Creek and Divide, and also north of Woodland Park, some resurfacing on State Highway 67 in that area. And Mayor, I hope you're aware that we're going to be starting back here soon on Manitou Avenue. Right.
Question?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you very much for the update on I-25. I appreciate what the vendors are doing and what CDOT is doing. And it is in my district, so you're making me really happy and staying on schedule. So thanks so much for that. I do have another question, and it's on a completely different topic. And it may be that we just do a follow-up afterwards. But we have a homeless camp that is on CDOT property just immediately north of Highway 24. And in the just east of the Manitou Springs end of jurisdiction on the east side. And we've had difficulty talking to the appropriate people in CDOT because we believe it is your obligation to deal with that. It's a safety hazard for the homeless, and it is on your property. It's your jurisdiction. So I'm interested in working with you to find out how we can have quick action with regard to collaboratively working together to deal with that problem. And these homeless camps are immediately behind a set of hotels on West Colorado Avenue, and they just opened up for the spring season. So they now have residents being accosted by the homeless people in that area. And we just confused about the jurisdiction and what CDOT should or shouldn't be doing with regard to that. So I'd like to have a follow-on discussion with you with that. If you have any comments right now, that's great. Otherwise, we can defer.
My comment would be that we should defer that. That also brings in a component of law enforcement, that State Patrol certainly plays a role in part of that, and CDOT typically does not get involved in the law enforcement aspects, but we do follow a lead, whether it's with the homeless hot team, the homeless outreach team with CSPD. We've had this type of situation before. It's worth a sit down so we can arrive at some type of reasonable solution.
I appreciate that. It is worth a sit down. This is actually not in the city jurisdiction because it's in this small strip of land between Manitou Springs and the city. So the hot team, if they were to do anything, it would be simply because they're just being nice about it. They don't actually have jurisdiction there. So the sheriff's office is the law enforcement agency that is the appropriate agency for this, and they've been trying to get a hold of CDOT personnel with regard to jurisdiction and approval to work on CDOT land and so forth, and we haven't been able to get there.
Let's have a conversation and we can get there.
Thank you.
Thank you. Just to commend CDOT, they were, I don't know if it's going to be the same person, Stan, or not, but CDOT did cooperate with us yesterday. I went out with them Friday to a homeless camp down on Fountain Creek that we just cleaned up yesterday. And so CDOT was partnering with us to have materials down there. So I don't know if Lieutenant Greg Maxwell is the sheriff's deputy who has been working on that with the hot team. So we'll make sure that they connect and get over to that side as well. But I think he was a little surprised at what he saw. It was his first time down along Fountain Creek visiting one of the homeless camps. So.
Okay. Any other questions? Yes, sir. Commissioner?
Going back to, pardon me, going back to 1242 for the moment. So should 1242 in whatever version emerge and go to the ballot, there will be a list of specific projects to go with it. Those, Karen couldn't be here today. She had to be at another meeting, but she has asked, and actually the conversation's already going on, but it's extremely important that we get PPACG feedback on prioritization of projects from within PPACG jurisdiction. The commission is actually going to be hearing the preliminary report from staff next week. So whatever can be done there would be appreciated. And Rick, I understand from the chair that you're the point of contact, so Karen will be in touch with you.
Yeah, I just got the email from Karen last night, and I was going to send that over. Yeah. He doesn't know he's going to get it yet, but he does now. Okay? Oh.
I know people that are in all of Region 2, but I'm a North Program resident engineer. Mark, I will get back with you. We are looking at Hoosier Pass. I don't know if there's anything as far as construction is imminent, but we are paying attention to Hoosier Pass and some of those settlement areas. Yes.
If it settles all the way down into Placer Valley, that's what I'm worried about. Because it's been dropping 6 inches a year ever since I've been there. I mean, every summer it drops.
I know my counterpart who is working on that.
Yes.
Is it appropriate for me to X a timeline on Highway 67 in Woodland Park? And if it would involve any improvements to the drainage situation along 67, going to the north towards Douglas County, in the city of Woodland Park?
I can get with you afterwards.
Thank you.
Okay. Stack update.
Let me continue the beat the drum on 1242. This was the primary discussion of the legislative update at the STAC meeting as well. This was a heavy snow day, so I attended by phone, but still had
likewise.
Yeah, we had a good discussion. Lots of things discussed, but 1242 is a topic. One of the things that Chief Engineer for CDOT, Josh Lapley, brought up was the fact that CDOT is this project list. We've all talked about it. It's the Tier 1 $3.5 billion project list that is part of this larger development list. there was some flexibility, and I made it clear that we need to be very clear with the MPOs that we need a voice in what that project list looks like. It's appeared in every conversation with the legislature that the citizens of Colorado deserve to know what they're buying. If this moves to ballot, they need to know what's on the list. In fact, during testimony yesterday in the Senate chambers, the Transportation and Energy Committee, Rachel Beck, testifying for the chamber, was asked, how in the world did a conservative El Paso County get a positive vote on the tax increase? How in the world did you do that? Rachel's response very, very clearly said that when people of El Paso County, Pikes Peak region know what they're buying, they have a voice. They take in consideration whether or not they were willing to buy from their pocket specific projects that will benefit them. They have a point. The question was asked by Senator Nancy Todd from Arapahoe County. How'd you do that? Well, knowing what we buy is really important. So back on this project list, it is the shopping list. And one of the amendments offered in the Senate yesterday was moving the timeline for developing that project list from 30 days out to 45 days. The purpose, I think, there is so that it can be properly vetted. Clearly, the Commissioner's point was that we need to make sure that we have a clear view, and I think Karen's question was, is this at staff level or at the board level? I think, Chair, I don't know, we've given guidance to staff, but my view is that we need to clearly get staff involved, we need to get the TAC involved, need to get the CAC involved. Everybody needs to look at what this list is so that when we tell CDOT what's on this list, which will appear in the Blue Book. In the ballot Blue Book going to every home in Colorado, they need to see what the shopping list is. Now, if you've seen how big this list is, it's huge. It's huge. It's pages and pages of. Commissioner, you know how big? I mean, how many projects I've forgotten already? But how many on the? It's massive. Big is a good description. Big is a good description. Yeah, or huge, as some else would say. But we need to be geared up for that because it's going to happen really quickly. Even a 45-day timeline is pretty quick. So that was a predominant, and I think that CDOT got the clear message that MPOs and TPRs need to have a clear voice in that. Lots of other things, but I won't waste our time this morning on talking a stack. But we're continuing to be very, very engaged. Anything else?
That was a big one. Yeah.
That was a big one. Yeah. Any questions? Thank you.
Speaking of lists and how we develop one.
Yes, thank you for that. So Jennifer Valentine, I'm a transportation planner here at PPACG. So it's been a couple of months since transportation staff provided you all with an update of long-range plan activities, and we've had a lot going on, so we figured it was a good time for that update. Okay. So I just want to go over some of the highlights of the goals survey that we recently concluded and wrapped up. The workshop that we had following the special TAC meeting, and then to give you a preview of the list of draft goals that you will hopefully be seeing next month if they move smoothly through our committees. Okay, so hopefully you were all able to take the survey that we had open. I think it was between February 9th or so, and it closed on March 10th. So it was open for about a month. We received just under 400 responses. We were pleased with that result, but we're continuing to try and raise the bar on our public involvement. So the survey started with a couple of open-ended questions, just getting a feel for what people want to see with transportation in our region. And then we wanted to specifically get input on what people thought about the 13 goals that we had as part of the 2040 plan, so our previously approved plan. So the results of the survey, we categorized all of the themes that we saw emerge from those survey results. So there were 3 different open-ended questions, which is why we have more than 400 responses here. We actually had thousands of comments. And we saw a few themes really kind of rise to the top. Transit. So that included both things like people wanting better local transit service bus, and then also looking at regional bus service.
I'm sorry, go ahead. I'm not interrupting.
Okay. Regional bus service or regional rail to various destinations. Improved non-motorized facilities in our area was also a popular response. Concerns about mobility, just people wanting to get around, not having too much congestion. And then a couple others that were over 100 were plan and prepare for and embrace the new technologies that we see coming with transportation. And then finally, maintenance. I think we've all experienced some need for maintenance. So then, like I mentioned, we also wanted to hear what people thought about our previous plan goals. Should we carry those forward? Should we be thinking about different ones? So everything highlighted in yellow over here is more than 50% of respondents said to keep that goal with high priority. If you do a little bit of math, you can see that just about all of them were 80% or more wanted to keep it in some capacity. So again, these are the 18 themes that came out of the survey. We took these forward to our goals workshop. I'll show you, I think there's some pictures in here in a second, but we had our goals workshop in this room, so thanks to anyone who was able to attend. We printed out 18 big boards and put them along this and that little ledge, and we had tables set up for small groups. So we had all 18 of the themes across the wall. Yes, here are the photos. So you can see over here, this is a little dot exercise we did, and then everybody's smiling faces. We had really positive feedback from the workshop that people enjoyed those conversations. So we did 2 different dot exercises during the workshop. The first was we gave all participants 15 red dots, and we said if you had to choose 15 of the 18, or maybe you just want to choose one, you want to put 15 dots on one theme, how would you prioritize these 18 themes for our region? And it was interesting for us, for staff, to compare what we saw from the survey versus what our workshop participants said. These were, so we invited people from the board, from the TAC, the CAC. We have what we call an extended TAC that has some more land use planners. So it's kind of people who are in the industry. So unsurprisingly, we saw transit again, but we also saw land use, infill, redevelopment concerns. I think a big part of that was because we did have a number of land use planners in the room who were thinking about these issues more than the general public. And then we saw mobility again. I think the only one that was really much different was natural environment was higher from the workshop than it was from the survey. And then I'm kind of going to skip over the small group exercises for a second. We then had a bunch of small group exercises, but then when everybody was leaving, we asked them to take, I can't remember if it was 3 or 5. I think it was 5 green dots. If you only have 5, how would you prioritize these same 18 themes? And so some of them are pretty similar. There were a couple of differences when people really had to get down to choosing just a few. Okay, so basically that middle part, the small group exercises, we just asked people to talk about the 15 of the 18 themes that kind of rose to the top. We asked people to write down bullet points on little comment cards. They had 5 minutes to talk about each one. So then we did that. We did the green dot exercise. And at the very end, we got, what are your main takeaways? And the main things we heard were some of the goals could kind of be combined, that maybe there are too many and that results in a lack of focus. And then some people said maybe it shouldn't be a goal if it's already a federal requirement. So the main takeaway was just that perhaps we could have fewer goals that are more high level and more visionary in nature. Okay, so following the workshop, we had a special TAC meeting where we wanted TAC members to really help us start narrowing all of this stuff down and drafting some goals. We also wanted them to think about a structure for the goals. I'll show you in just a second. You'll see how we structured everything in the 2040 plan versus how we're proposing to structure it this time. And then we really wanted to make sure we were considering how to address the federal requirements associated with goals. So again, this is what I just mentioned. So there was support from multiple places for fewer goals. They were more visionary. So this chart, and you don't need to be able to see the details. It's I'm sure you can't. It basically just shows how we did it last time. So we started on the left with the goal, and then it gets more specific as you move to the right with the objectives, the targets, evaluation criteria, and finally how it relates to project scoring. So we had 13 goals, and we had 13 scoring criteria. They all just went straight across. So the example that we brought to the special TAC meeting that was very well received was to have, so these are their 4 goals. So this is their vision across the top. These are their 4 goals. And then staff found it kind of amusing that they actually break out into 13 objectives. So it seems like there's just this core set of things that need to be considered, whether it's at a very high level or you put it a little bit further down in the branch tree. So I don't want to spend too much time on the national goals, but one thing that was interesting about the North Front Range example is that this chart shows how national goals and national planning emphasis areas fit in. So we really liked this structure. Okay, so at the special TAC meeting, we actually were able to come up with a set of draft goals. The group sort of tentatively decided that the vision from the 2040 plan still really serves as a good umbrella for the goals that we came up with. And so as of right now, there's not really too much discussion about changing the vision statement. So this is the list of 5 draft goals that we came up with. So maintenance and operations, mobility, connectivity and accessibility, safety, and then economic vitality is a pretty broad one that encompasses a lot of different things. And what you can see here, and again, don't need to be able to read it, this is sort of an internal working document that we started with, coming up with our own version of what North Front Range put together. So we have our vision at the top, the 5 goals, which you just saw on the previous slides that you could read. So then we showed how the national goals and planning emphasis areas fit in. So we wanted to make sure that these 5 goals we came up with covered everything. And then we took the 18 themes that we heard from the survey and from the workshop, and we wanted to do the same thing to make sure, are we forgetting anything? Did we leave anything out? Is there a place? And so we just stacked them underneath the goals. And you can see a couple of them cut across everything: technology and cost effectiveness. So our next steps are continuing to flesh out this chart. So instead of 18 themes, it'll be targets, objectives, performance measures. And so that's what's going to go through our committees after the goals are approved. But first, we have to get the goals approved. So any questions about all of that? Sure.
In CDOT channel was talking about what is the future? What does 2050 look like? Autonomous vehicles, use of parking space, infill housing, technology, what people are working from home versus commuting in Denver. How challenging was that to embrace the future?
Yeah, well, so I think you're going to love what's coming next. So our next big workshop and then public process effort is scenario planning. And I'm actually really excited about it. And I think it's going to be a great opportunity for public involvement because I think other people are going to get excited about it too. So we're talking about coming up with 3 or 4 underlying land use scenarios. So in the past we've done things like infill or trends continue. So you kind of think about the built environment and how it looks. And then we stack all of these things on top of it and we build these stories or scenarios that explain, well, how do autonomous vehicles function in an infill scenario versus in a more dispersed scenario? How do baby boomers and millennial travel patterns and preferences, how do those fit in? So that's really where we start getting into all of that stuff. The goals, we feel like, be things that apply in any scenario. So safety, we care about safety. There might be different considerations if we all have autonomous vehicles, but we still care about it. Does that make sense?
It just seems widely divergent from what could happen. You know, there's one theory I've heard that we may have 30% fewer vehicles on the road because the same vehicle will be owned by groups of people. You know?
Yeah.
All of us may share 3 vehicles in this room.
So that's part of the scenario planning exercise. That autonomous vehicles is a great example, because in a more dense downtown environment they can function one way, versus if everything is more dispersed and everybody can, brush their teeth or read a book on the way to work, then sure, I'll live an hour from work, versus if that's not an option, you want to live closer.
I have a comment.
R2D2 will be driving.
So, Mr. Chairman. Yes. Thank you. Norm, it's funny because I did, after many of these conversations, we're going to hopefully be setting up a innovative technology board with the Board of County Commissioners and having something like this, looking at autonomous vehicles looked at in a different way. But I did ask all 3 of my millennial children what they thought about this, and they're like, what, a car without like a place to put all of our junk that we go play with after work or before work or on the way? No way, I'm not hauling it all with me. So I think it's even going to be a hard sell to our millennial kids.
Mr. Chair, if I might. Yeah, thank you. Just be interested in maybe doing a one-off meeting with you and the team. I've got a background in ops research. In fact, that's my degree. And I'm just, it's great all the work that you've done here, but I can tell you right away one of your challenges is that you're looking at criteria that are not mutually exclusive. So an example of this is asking people to evaluate technology. The problem is technology impacts safety, reliability, it impacts the environment. So when someone cares about the environment, they might think technology solves environment problems, so they're going to rate technology high and environment high, and then you get somebody evaluating 2 criteria very high, and maybe to the detriment of something else. So what I'd like to do is maybe just spend a little time with the team and give you some thoughts about how to work your way through this study to get yourself to effective, useful, and measurable goals. Some keys to that, and I think it's just a thought that I'll just leave with you, but it's an example. When we're talking about an infrastructure system, particularly with transportation, we should be thinking about what's the cost of a citizen to go from point A to point B, what is the time taken to go from point A to point B, and then what is the quality of that travel. When you have a lot of potholes, you affect quality, right? And you can also affect cost by damaging cars. So these things can actually drive other behavior when you think about that cost, schedule, performance kind of criteria. So I don't want to necessarily force you down one path or another about a design. What I'd like to do is give you some suggestions and some ideas and let you go forth and conquer at that point.
Okay. Yeah, we appreciate that, and that's very timely, given that, frankly, coming up with the 5 broad goals was the easy part. Coming up with the objectives and the targets, all the measurable stuff, that's a little bit more difficult. So we'd welcome that opportunity.
Is 400 enough responses to make decisions on?
Well, I wouldn't say that we're making decisions solely based on the survey responses. We're certainly using it as input. We did have the follow-up workshop, and then we're going through our committees, so it really just sort of guides us in the future. We definitely hope to have, when we do surveys, we hope to have them open longer so we can have more survey responses. At this point, we're really trying to stick to our schedule so we don't get into a bad place next year or the year after. But we would have liked to see more, but for now we were happy with 400. It's a lot more than we've received in the past.
Fisher?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Following up on Commissioner Vanderweed's comments, the extremely complex topic, but the whole issue of looking at this transportation mobility as a system, and because mobility is the outcome, right? And what we have done so far is just the best we could do given what we knew when we did it. But going future, whether it's technology or behavioral changes or anything else, the system-wide complexity of actually delivering mobility to people is extremely high now, and it'll get more, and it'll get higher. I've been having this same conversation within CDOT staff, particularly in the RoadX program and technology. I don't know where there's an opportunity to broaden this conversation, because it's not unique. I'm glad you brought it up. It's not clearly not unique to this region. It then is also unique to the state because we're all connected as part of that conversation as well. So I'd like to be a part of that conversation with you, at least to think about, as complex as it is, and it takes more resources, it takes different skills and different way of thinking. If we really want to deliver mobility at a reasonable cost and quality to our customers, we're going to be doing things that are so different from what we can even conceive of today that we need to step back and think differently about them.
And I appreciate that. I'd be happy to, work with you on that one way or another. I can tell you one of the one potential avenue of discussion is simulation models, because simulation models allow you to do 1,000 what-ifs without having to spend gigantic amounts of money, and then you can validate that simulation model as you discover maybe unusual behaviors on the output side. You refine those things, and eventually you get to a point where you can really simulate that immensely complex system that you're referring to, and this can be really, really effective at delivering the ability to make effective decisions. And sometimes the output is surprising. Sometimes it's pretty interesting that you find things that you actually weren't even thinking about before. So.
You said you were going to have another a series of community input meetings. I like, and I appreciate everything you guys have done, and I think you've done a really good job, but I would like to see some type of marketing strategy laid out before the meetings. It was a little frustrating to get handed postcards like on a Monday in the survey, or on Tuesday and the survey closed on Wednesday. We really didn't have time to try to get more people involved with it, and maybe spending a little bit more money than $50 on the marketing strategy, using Facebook, purchasing some of the ads there that would push them, and different technologies. I'm hoping that would, and I don't know what your budget is, but I just think that's really, really important to try, especially because of the age groups that we did not reach in this survey that we were wanting to reach with, as Peggy referred to, the younger millennials, figuring out, well, you may all think that I want to do this, but what am I going to do with all my gym stuff afterwards? Those are all really, really important. I know when years ago when Yosemite was thinking of cutting off traffic down within the valley, they didn't think of the moms with the strollers and the people with the backpacks. They thought everybody could just hop on a bus. So everything to consider is very, very important. So.
Yeah, and we're definitely on the same page. Like I mentioned, one of our takeaways was we would definitely want the survey to be open longer. We did have some hiccups and some frustrations we were kind of learning as we went along. But so the scenario planning workshop we're envisioning being in early June, so we have a little bit more time to plan that, and then having a 2-month follow-up where Jessica McMullen in particular will have time to go out to lots of community events, going where people already are. So having that full 2 months to do additional community engagement. So we're planning to do this next one a little bit differently.
Yeah, I would think out of the box, though, because if you're just going to meetings like county commissioner meetings or city council meetings or other things, you're going to pretty much see the same group of people at a lot of meetings. Think out of the box, where are some of these younger people going to be in their interests? I mean,
we've been
go to a trivia night at a local bar or something. I hate to say it, but
yeah, we have a list circulating internally of community events. So things like there's a What If Festival or Territory Days or just bigger public events like that, not people who are in the industry.
Our council did not score well at the trivia bar.
Should have got one of those millennials on the team.
Following along with that, I think other approaches as well, and as we're having this conversation, one idea that came to my mind is visualization of some of these scenarios and whether you can get an artist rendering of that to, really, and they probably should be pretty extreme so you catch people's attention, likely knowing that they might not be realistic in the end, but they're something that can push people's thoughts and say, no, we don't want to go towards that. We want to go towards this. And some way to think about that and what that looks like, and putting very, I'd say, controversial images in our region together to get people's reaction and get people engaged.
We will definitely keep visualization in mind. Thanks.
RTA?
Yeah, so we looked at where we had participation from for this last public input, and so our plan is to target even more the ones that were lacking, so the 20 to 29 age group. And then we had a list of the geographic areas, and obviously Colorado Springs had the most. And as you got further down the list, there was maybe one person from some of the smaller communities. So we definitely want to target those more this time.
One of my first meetings here 8 years ago, that there was a conversation about how to give people the ride the public transportation rather than drive their own personal vehicle. And when they were talking about it, they said, they didn't consider the rural people that come to Colorado Springs to shop, and that has to be, when you're looking at your numbers for your tax numbers and so forth, that has to be some sort of pretty big number of all the people that come from Teller County and Park County and come down to Colorado Springs to shop. And I mean, there's no place to shop. So if you think about other patterns besides just the patterns that are going on in the city and the other transportation, as far as tourists that are coming and what they want to do and what's their desire, what they like to see when they get here as tourists to travel around the state, and those are important too. And it's a big part of our state's economy, and it's a big part, I think, of Colorado Springs' economy, that people come here, land here, stay here, and then go up to the mountains and do what they do. So those things have to be thought about too.
Yeah, I think that's an important reminder, and it also reminds me of a number of conversations we've had in our committees, and it reminds me of the value of having diverse representation on those committees. I don't know if Victoria's still here. She never lets us forget about, El Paso County and more rural concerns, because, sometimes it is easy to focus on the more urban stuff, and that's not our whole region. So, sure.
Ma'am, do you have access to all the survey platforms like CSU's survey platform?
I'm not sure. I will say the survey we used last time we weren't pleased with, so in the future we'll be looking for something different.
Well, I've noticed in all our discussions that CSU has a huge survey platform that can be used for addressing thousands of people, and you can actually discuss or define the demographics, and once everybody agrees to the actual terms, i.e. the words and things like this, and then there's bound to be others. There's bound to be a chamber one and the rest of it. But CSU is the one I'm quite familiar with. And, that could really expand your base. It's local base, but again, it could expand your base as far as getting feedback.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you.
Peak Military Care Network.
Thank you. It's some new faces here. And good morning still. What's that? And some old ones. Familiar ones. Kate.
Older, decrepit ones. Other people have said that too. You turn into a grumpy old man, Mark. Right now. All these kids whipped me at A-Basin when I was skiing, and it just turned me sour on me. There's pills here.
Good morning still. Thanks for hanging in. I'm Kate Hatton with the Peak Military Care Network, and for those of you who don't know, the Peak Military Care Network actually came out of PPACG and the Fort Carson Regional Growth Plan, which is why I'm here. Wanted to make sure you had an update kind of how we've evolved and where we are. And so where we are today is we're still working to connect service members, veterans, and families to quality resources, and we do that through a collaboration of our partner agencies. One of the main things, that came out of the growth plan recommendations was a web-based resource to help people connect to resources. So we have our Network of Care service directory. It has a lot of other features that I won't go into here. If you want more details on that, I'll give you that to you offline. But since PPACG and the AAA has a Network of Care, perhaps you're familiar with a lot of those resources as well. One point I want to make that we had more than 86,000 visits to that website last year. So averaging 7,500, 8,000 a month, a 28% increase over the last couple of years. years. So more and more people are going to that site looking for resources. There are more than 1,000 services listed in that service directory, and that's great news. The bad news is that there are more than 1,000 resources listed in that directory, so it can be overwhelming. And so we've added a feature where that if people can't find what they need, they can contact our staff directly and find information and get some more personal assistance. So in addition to information assistance through our website, we also have call-in assistance, and we work through, again, I mentioned some of that email component. We also partner with United Ways so that if someone calls 211 and identifies themselves as military and veteran connected, they can then get connected to us. And that guy right there, Christian, our navigator, who is a medical retired non-commissioned officer, so he's walked the walk, and he can talk to folks who've gotten out and challenges they've had. And so we last year had more than 400 callers directly to us. They had including family members, it was more than 8,000, from spouses to family members. And really what we're trying to do from that point is do more personal service. And that navigation component is really more connecting dots on multiple levels. So someone usually comes in with more than one need, and so we will help them work across multiple services with our many partner agencies, and then stick with them as long as they need us, whether that's one phone call, 2 phone calls, 6 months, 2 years, whatever it takes to make sure that those who need assistance and get an initial need met. The challenge is that most people call when they're in a little bit of trouble. They're in crisis. They can't pay a utility bill. They can't pay rent. They're about to get evicted, or they have some other issues, and we want to make sure that those immediate crisis needs are met, and that then long term, they don't call back the next month with another crisis need, so that we can make sure that they're self-sufficient moving forward. And so, that circle, which I apologize, it wasn't quite as small font as the transportation slides, but you've got copies in your packet. But really, again, a broad sector across the gamut, whether it's advocacy, behavioral health, or anything that might touch a service member, veteran, or family member, we want to make sure people get connected to those services. We work directly with the military installations and the VA, so that the answer isn't no to somebody. If they walk in a door, whether it's the VA office or the clinic, or it's one of our partner agencies or somewhere else, the answer isn't, if we don't do that, we know who does, and let's get you connected. So that's the concept, and that's how we're working to make sure people get access to services. The other piece is education and outreach, and there are really 2 components on that. One is our partner agencies sign an MOU that commits them to understanding military and veteran culture, so we feel it's our responsibility to make understand military and veteran culture. So we do trainings every month. In fact, I think tomorrow in this room is our next monthly partner agency meeting, where we will, again, there's a different topic every time. We try and make sure that people understand what the issues are, the challenges are. We have military installation staff and VA staff attend, whether those are social workers or clinic folks, and Airmen and Family Readiness, Army Community Service, and then our partner agencies, really to make sure that they know what resources are available, what the needs are we tracking trends, and really an opportunity to problem solve. And so this slide just shows that we kind of evaluate every training, we do evaluate every training that we do, and to see whether it's helpful and useful, and resoundingly yes is the answer. It helps them understand and do their jobs better. It gives them more tools in their toolbox to better serve. We did, as our network grows, we train more people, and so we did 10 trainings in 2015 and 11 trainings in 2016, and more people come to those trainings and see value in those trainings. The other piece of the education and outreach is making half the battle is that people don't know what resources are available to them or how to access them. So we want to make sure that they know that they can connect it to get whatever their need are. So Amanda, our outreach coordinator, helps us get connected to a lot of those resources. We go to resource fairs, we go to these meetings, we go to individual events, job fairs, whatever it takes to get information, the word out. And when you were talking about millennials, the ones who know how to use Facebook and Twitter and those sorts of things, so that we can get connected to folks as much as possible. So if there are any folks that you want us to get to, we will happily talk to anybody and get the word out and make sure that they know, not about just us, but about all of the partner agencies and all the resources. Yes, sir. Okay. Oh, yeah.
That would be a wonderful thing for you to have outreach in Park County, because there's a lot of veterans up there that are isolationists.
Absolutely.
Any kind of word at all, and if they knew that those services were available, it might help.
That's great. So we will absolutely get connected, and that's good to have some web-based resources and call-in. And some people don't want to have a face-to-face contact, and they'd rather do it more anonymously, and we can help do that. Absolutely. And we got magnets too. We got whatever people, we'll definitely do that. I brought some brochures too if anybody wants those. So we were a staff of 1.5 until about the middle of last year. So we added with some grant funding, some additional staff, including Amanda. So we, again, have upped our game on social media and being able to get out and get to more events. And so we're able to reach more folks. And so any other event that we're happy to get to. I'm trying to go fast because I know it's been a long day. Our board of directors, the progression, we started as a program under PPACG, then we became a program under another nonprofit, and in 2015 that nonprofit realized that its only mission was the Peak Military Care Network, so the nonprofit changed its name and we became the Peak Military Care Network as a 501c3 in June of 2015. So our board of directors includes, and I'm going to shout out to her, she's hiding in the back, but she can't remain anonymous, Sally Clark is a new board member, and so we're glad to have her on board, and we have, military expertise, community expertise. Our advisory board includes military, VA, and community partners, so that we make sure that we could build what we think is the coolest plan in the world. But if it doesn't meet the needs of our military and veteran community, it's no good. So we want that input, and our partner agencies. And I'll give you a little bit more detail about them. Our partner agencies, we have 30 right now. Again, all of the circle, all of those areas that they provide, and I'll show you the list of them in a minute. They not only we evaluate how that network is working, how they're working together. They made more than 1,000 referrals within the network. We don't just refer to folks in that network, or there's a vetting of those partner agencies so that we know that they've understand military and veteran culture. They've committed to helping. We know that they're good and they're in it for the right reasons, and that again they're sort of drinking the Kool-Aid, if you will, on working together and meeting needs. But there are certainly other worthy organizations out there that there may not be an eligibility issue or whatever that we want to make sure people get connected to. So our goal is to get people connected to the right resources for that individual or that family. And we're certainly seeing more. And the good news is that as more people know about what resources are available, the answer isn't no. It's we don't do it, but we know who does. And let's connect you. Those are a list of our partner agencies. Gail, she's still here? AMBLCAB is one of our partner agencies. The Area Agency on Aging we work with very directly. A lot of El Paso County organizations, the Veterans Service Office, Department of Human Services, El Paso County Public Health, Sheriff's Police Department is on our advisory board. So a lot of community and nonprofit organizations, whether it's workforce, behavioral health, recreation programs, health care for those who don't have access to VA or other TRICARE or other services, and kind of everything in between. So right now, 38 partner agencies. We will probably have more in the coming year. We started with 16 and piloted what works, what doesn't work, and so we continue to kind of tweak and adjust to make sure we're meeting needs. And what it ultimately comes down to is health and well-being for service members, veterans, and families and the communities. Happy, healthy members of the community make for happy, healthy communities. At least that's the goal. Cost savings through, prevention programs and making sure we're leveraging resources. If we have an organization that has expertise in a certain area, rather than create something that's outside of their expertise, they now know that there's another organization that does that. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. Again, it helps service members remain focused on mission because they know their families back home are taken care of. And really it's about collective impact. How are we working as a community? What are the gaps? What are the challenges? And how can we do better holistically with all of us working together to meet needs? A couple of quotes that I'll leave for you there in terms of how we're helping. Whether I would say that the majority of the folks that we see are veterans and families. There's a small active duty folks, maybe about 10% who call us, and they're often new. Or what we're seeing more and more of is that we are a service member. We just moved here, and mom or dad is living with us, and what services are there for elderly folks in the community? We usually send them here to the AAA. So those are kind of I know I just spoke fast. I know you guys want to get out of here, but that's really kind of just a very brief overview of where we've come, what we're about. Really trying to make sure that as a community we are working together to meet needs, that collective impact approach, and ideally get to folks before they're in crisis. We'd love for them to call before they get that eviction notice, and we'd like to more know about the resources that are available, and so anything you can do to help us spread the word, we're happy to do that, and we'll he's over there. Hit Park County and any place else that needs us. So I will stop there. Happy to answer questions or talk to folks. Yes, sir.
Just a quick question. A topic that comes up quite a bit. I'm on the Pikes Peak Community College Advisory Board, and we discussed in a strategic planning conversation this week the question of the extent to which all the programs that we have are actually meeting the need. So my question is, are there statistically significant data that tell us the extent to which we're meeting the needs of this population that you're serving in all the different areas in which you're providing service.
We are continuing to work and to develop those evaluation systems so the parts that we can evaluate are the people that we touch directly. Other than that, it's kind of public health data around unemployment rates or homeless rates or those sorts of things, access to behavioral health services and those kinds of issues. It's very hard, for example, to get employment information. Somebody goes to a job fair or they get a degree, and how long can someone follow that person to say, did they get the job that they wanted? Are they still in that job, and that job is providing for them and their families? So it's really hard to get that information, and we kind of use proxies around, again, unemployment rates and those sorts of things. But if people touch us, we do evaluations, we do surveys, we do follow-ups. We have an assessment tool that we use to kind of track that. We're building that assessment tool on the navigation piece that'll be implemented this year. But so the best that we can get that information, we can tell you that folks who connect with us, to step back in the olden days, if you just called 211 and said, I need help with something, and they got connected to a service, there was not a lot of follow-up. There was some kind of random sampling around that. But we follow up with everybody that we can who will call us back or that we can get a hold of so that we can know that, that the level of increase in their awareness of resources, and that's one of our metrics, or did they connect to those services and did they meet those needs? So we can do that for the people we touch and then kind of have to use proxies. So
it would be very interesting to know, and I'm sure it applies to other organizations as well, but it'd be very interesting to know, again, with some confidence in the data, the difference between the perceived need of this customer base and what we're actually delivering. Because I know we think we're pretty good as a community, because we do a lot of stuff. But are we doing enough? Are we doing the right stuff? How does our service our target population feel about it?
We do that, again, as best we can through surveys of the people we touch. We survey and ask for data from our partner agencies. I have a much more detailed slide deck on the data that we collect that I'm happy to share with you in terms of some of the details of what we do and what we're able to track. And there may be some metrics that you can suggest that might be a better way. But
I appreciate that.
Sure.
Just a quick comment. First of all, thanks for coming. And we had a one-on-one session not too long ago about this particular organization. I can tell you that one of the things that I've always been concerned about is, and it's concern in a good way, we do have a huge number of private nonprofits that provide services for vets or homeless care or getting people back on their feet and so forth and so on. First of all, it's really hard to know, are we really succeeding, because it's a lot of organizations that are doing an array of different things. But one thing I do like about the Peak Military Care Network, and this is actually the point I want to make, because there is a dizzying array of private nonprofits that support vets in need, it is really, really hard to know which one to go to get an answer to an issue. And I feel like the Peak Military Care Network can actually answer that for people trying to find a service. So I would just recommend, if it's a hard time, if you run into a vet has an issue, and of course prevention before they get into a big issue is the key to this. So if they're struggling, I would encourage you all to ask them to go on the Peak Military Care Network website. Just remember that one. If you can't remember anything else, remember that one, because this lists all of the service providers, and it becomes a way for you to go to all those different websites and evaluate those things and kind of compare so that they can be fit to the right place. And I'm also happy to say that El Paso County is one of the partners for the Peak Military Care Network.
Real fast to follow up on Mr. Scott's comments. One of the advantages we could provide, or services we could provide as ACG, is a repository of information from various organizations that can be used to answer these particular questions. Dizzying array is kind of a nice term. I see a lot of duplication of effort, but there's no central repository of this particular information for us to make informed decisions or to move forward. And if there's anything this organization could do is to build that repository of information and link it all together to give everybody information. So
that helps do that. I'm sorry.
No, ma'am. That helps us provide one sliver of one piece of the bigger picture that's being asked. And that's what I'm saying. I'm saying this organization could help. And all it is in all honesty, is link app that gives you a picture of what it looks like, so it could answer the question that he needs at the precise point in time that we're sitting at the legislature saying the reason it won't work is because of 50 million whatever, or 20 million, or 10 million, or how many roads you need kind of thing. And we do not have that. We consistently assume, we consistently add another organization or another function without actually looking at it.
And we're happy to help in that. One of the reasons Peak Military Care Network was created is we did that growth planning, the strategic planning, and that kind of swirl of the different organizations that were around. Everybody holding, we want to help, we want to help. Who are the good players? That are in it for the right reasons? And what services do they provide? No, absolutely. And so how can we, sort of be that coordinating entity and bring some discipline to that madness? Thank you.
Thank you. CDHP 319 project summary.
Good morning. I'll be exceedingly brief. I'm Peter Gillespie, Environmental Program Manager here at PPACG. I was here before you last month and I presented the status of this project. Basically, it's the watershed management plan that has been funded by CDPAG, focusing on bacterial contamination. The project began it was awarded in 2014-15. Work began in earnest 2016. As I got into the project, the expectations of the funding partners grew and kept growing, and it became apparent after about 6 months of work into it that PPACG did not have the resources that more was expected of us than the funding and the resources that were available. That's not a bad thing. That's a very good thing. So toward the end of the year and early into this year, we negotiated with the co-funding partners, principally the City of Colorado Springs, also very much Colorado Springs Utilities with them, and the Pikes Peak Regional Water Authority to transition this project to where they would lead it. That entailed us working with CDPAG to bring the project to an end, based on work done to date, to prepare a summary report of what has been done, and to then refund the matching funds that the partners had given to us to them. So the document that you have in your packet is the final report from our agency to CDPAG and copied to our project partners, which summarizes the work that we have done to date. We are in the good graces of CDPAG. It was an amicable closeout of the project. The co-funders are continuing this work with their own funds. They're also going as well back to CDPAG, I understand, applying for grants from them, grant money from them. So the work continues at a larger scope and with additional resources that the co-funders have. Those resources include funding, but also their staff. They have technical staff that they're bringing to bear on the project. So our work, PPACG's work in this is now at a close. It's ended well with this report, and the work continues by others. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Thanks. Good job.
Good day. Thank you all.
Member entity announcements? Yes.
When we did introductions, I just said what my name was. I didn't give any validation for why I'm here. I'm an Air Force Academy graduate, retired Air Force, past El Paso County administrator, and retired recently from the Pikes Peak Association of Realtors. But I'm on the Military Advisory Committee of the Chamber in EDC now, and they asked me to be their representative here at PPACG. So that's why I'm here as a MAC representative. And to throw something in, Andy Merritt, who is the military affairs vice president at the Chamber, is leaving, and he's going to be the state director for Senator Gardner. And they're having a going away function that you might want to put on your calendar for him. It's Friday, April 21st, 5:30 to 6:30 at Phantom Canyon. We're talking about getting young people and beer and stuff. Well, that's a way to fit in with with younger people at the Phantom Canyon. So again, Friday, April 21st, 5:30 at Phantom Canyon is a goodbye to Andy Merritt and to welcome him into his new job.
Great. Thanks. Any other announcements?
Happy Easter, everybody.
Happy Easter, that's right. Your meeting schedule is in the packet. Any questions? We are adjourned.